Chris, what is our fifth main topic today?
This is from Richard Avery. The fascinating story over at Warner Brothers just continues to get more interesting. There's a new report in The Hollywood Reporter that David Zaslav's endgame in this whole thing with acquiring Warner Brothers was just to flip it and sell it to Comcast. Was the whole point of buying WB just to play flip or flop with it like his Discovery show? What do you think, and can this actually happen? Thanks.
All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, Richard. And it's funny you use that analogy. I did a live Mint Mobile Hotline question show this weekend, and I actually kind of made the same analogy comparing to flip or flop. So for those of you who don't know what it is that we're talking about here, here's what's being reported right now. Apparently, the Hollywood Reporter is done this story where basically they're saying they're being told that it looks like the whole endgame, that's the word they used, the whole endgame of David Zaslav and Discovery taking over Warner Brothers was simply to do a live action version of his other show, Flip or Flop, which is to, buy an old broken down house, renovate it, and then sell it, hopefully for a bigger price. That's the idea of flip or flop, or what, house flipping is. And what they are saying is that is basically, that's what David Zaslav's plan is not to take Warner Brothers and build it into a this, that, or the other thing over the next 10 years, but their plan is just to flip it. This is what comes to us from the Hollywood Reporter. They wrote the following. It has become accepted wisdom that the highest levels in the industry that another deal awaits in the wings for Warner Brothers Discovery. For reasons related to the complicated structure of that merger, no negotiations can officially happen until April of 2024. But at that point, many industry observers believe that Comcast's Brian Roberts will make a long-awaited move looking to combine NBC Universal and Warner Brothers Discovery. That deal would face some interesting antitrust issues, but would give his company scale and a viable streaming service. Obviously, Peacock sucks, says one executive with knowledge of both companies. There are some good synergies, and I think that is Zaslav's endgame. Get the place sold. That comes to us from the folks at the Hollywood Reporter. Now, look, let me preface all of this by reminding you guys that I have been a big fan of the moves that David Zaslav has made with Warner Brothers, because I, over the last couple of years, have made this big laundry list of things that I think Warner Brothers needs to do with their overall thing and with DC. In comes David Zaslav, and he starts doing all the things that I said that I think they need to do. So clearly, I love what the guy's doing because he's doing exactly what I thought they should do. The concept, though, that they just stepped in to buy this just to flip it and sell it to an NBC Comcast, which is a monstrous company. I got to tell you, I don't know how I feel about that. Now, it puts some moves that David Zaslav has made in the last couple of weeks into sharper context. Because the idea is, if you want to flip it, well, what are you going to do? You're going to go in, you're going to try to remove a bunch of its, because you're going to do what you think it's going to make it look more valuable. So you're going to get rid of some liabilities. You're going to take away some of the red ink. You're going to, do whatever you can do to all that kind of stuff. And when you look at things like some of these smaller shows that they removed just to get rid of some of the licensing fees and to get rid of some of the royalties and back ends that would have to be paid out for them, you're getting rid of those financial liabilities. You're thinking DC needs to look like a good, proper IP. Batgirl, from all reports that we've heard, from all reliable reports we've heard, Batgirl was a terrible movie. So releasing that movie was going to hurt the image of the DCEU, kill that, move it away. Suddenly now, it puts a lot of that into better perspective if he is indeed trying to flip it. However, I will not be a fan of this if this is the case. And I say that as somebody who has really liked most of the moves David Zaslav has made. But if this is true, I do not like it. Because what it tells me is that you're moving in to do a quick valuation rather than really looking at super long-term success. Now, I believe a lot of the moves that he has done has been beneficial for longer-term success, but it means that his focus isn't really on longer-term success. His focus is on just getting rid of the stuff that's sucking money out of the company, try to better position it, blah, 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 blah. But I'll tell you the other thing I really don't like. The other thing I really don't like about it is this, is the disappearing of the major studios. Because the more major studios we have making films, a bigger diversity of films we get, a wider scope of voices we get, whereas one company may not be making something hot this year, another company may be. A great illustration of this for me, Rob, I've gone back to this many times, is the whole X-Men thing. When Comcast was bidding against Disney to try to buy Fox, even though I'm a big Disney fan, everybody was perplexed to hear me say, I'm cheering for Comcast. I want Comcast to win this. Why? Because if Fox had been under Disney, Deadpool never would have been made. If Fox had been under Disney, Logan, one of the, I believe, top 3 comic book movies ever made, never would have got made. A movie like X-Men Days of Future Past, which I believe is a top 10 comic book movie of all time, never would have been made. Now that it's under Disney, if at the time I would have said, if it goes under Disney, they're going to make some great movies, no doubt. But it's going to be the same kind of movie. And it's going to be, the Disney style. It's going to be the current Marvel style. And I loved the idea of there being another studio with that property that can make different types of films that Disney would not make. And when you have more players in the game, you have that. And the notion right now, Rob, to me, of Warner Brothers just being absorbed, like you have these 2 major studios out there, and another one is just going to disappear, again, limiting and shrinking the playing field even more. Maybe there's upside to this that I'm just not seeing right now because I've only been able to process it for a couple of days. Give me a few months and maybe I'll think differently. But if this Hollywood Reporter report is true, right now, and I reserve the right to change my mind when I get more information, but right now, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And it makes me very, very nervous. That's something like historic property, a historic studio like Warner Brothers can just be looked at like another asset, like a house that you got to flip. And again, we don't know for sure this is true. We don't know for sure if it's true. But if it is true, it makes me concerned. Anyway, Chris, you hear about this. What are the parts that you take away from it?
Well, first of all, I'm more of a love it or list it gal.
I love Love It or List It.
I love It or List It.
They're
great. Those two have weird sexual chemistry too, where you're like, they're going to punch each other or they're going to make out. I don't know why they're so
totally
angry.
boned many times. I totally
They're just
believe
furious with each other at all times. The thing here is, it seems like such a weird move. I understand it financially. I really, really do. To trim the fat, scale down, and make something that's desirable for somebody else to purchase. I don't think you bring in an Alan Horn to make that move. I don't think you do that because I believe Alan's here to help with the building of things, right? Right now we're in that kind of fire sale of what must go. And I think we have these other members of the team being assembled for the creation of things. That being said, if this were to happen, if they are to just list it to somebody else, it's a definite possibility. I know people in the chat are asking if they legally could even do this. Of course they could.
They absolutely can. 100% they can.
It's just a sale, and there'd just be contracts in place that would deal with this. It really would bum me out to lose something as iconic as Warner Brothers and have their identity further diminished because we have so many of these mergers already happening and having so many companies under these various umbrellas. I love the iconography of old Hollywood. I really, really do.
Yeah.
And one of the things I loved and got the most excited about when I moved to LA for the first time was just driving through this little hillbilly from Texas, was seeing the studios and driving past Warner Brothers lot and everything. And I know those places would still physically be here, but I love the idea of them too. And I really, really hope that Warner Brothers gets to be its own entity.
Guys, we want to take a second and thank the sponsor of this video, MasterClass. All of us here at the John Campea Show absolutely love MasterClass. With MasterClass, you can learn from the world's best minds, anytime, anywhere, and at your own pace. You can learn television writing from Shonda Rhimes, improve your comedy skills from Steve Martin, or you can learn filmmaking from James Cameron himself. With over 100 different classes from a range of world-class instructors, that thing you've always wanted to learn is closer than you think. I have personally watched Bob Iger's lessons on business strategy and leadership at least 6 or 7 times. Every time I watch it, I learn something new that I get to apply to my own business as well. And the best thing about it is you don't have to sit down and watch an entire thing all at once. You can watch the individual segments or just as much as you want in any sitting at a time. So guys, when it comes to MasterClass, I highly recommend that you check it out. Get unlimited access to every MasterClass. And as a John Campea Show listener, offer, you get 15% off an annual membership. Go to masterclass.com/Campea. That's masterclass.com/Campea for 15% off Masterclass. Rob, you're hearing this story. I mean, listen, this has been a nonstop things happening ever since this merger took place. You hear about these reports coming out of the Hollywood Reporter. What's your takeaway from it?
I think it's terrible. I think it's insidious. I think it's also bad for American democracy. Because I heard a story on
That's a big leap.
I heard an NPR story this weekend. It was a report on how all the larger publishing companies are trying to consolidate to the point where there's only going to be a few publishers that are publishing novels.
Yeah.
The same thing is true. Look, corporations are the enemy of free thought and free expression because it affects their bottom line. And if anything affects their bottom line, there's going to be our ability to tell stories is a very important component of our democracy. And the more that corporations are controlling that flow of what stories are being told, how they're being told, and who's telling them, ultimately, I think it's not good for a free society where we need the free flow of ideas and the way to examine things. And storytelling, movies, the rise of movies in the 20th century was one of the most powerful storytelling forces we've ever seen in the history of humanity. Now, the diversity of studios, of things they wanted to do, like Warner Brothers was known for their noir, their gangster movies like in the 30s, Top of the World Ma or whatever. The more that we consolidate underneath corporate banners, the less we're going to get diverse, interesting stories. Like you pointed out, no Deadpool, no Logan.
And that's just one example.
It's just one example. And the problem is these corporations don't care about storytelling. They don't care about that. They look at it as an asset, understandably. But it's not just that the studios, it's the fact that the studios now are sitting on, Warner Brothers is celebrating its 100th anniversary next year. It's sitting on a legacy. I heard once that there's 70% of the things that Warner Brothers have made throughout the 20th century are not even available in any format because they still have to go through and put them out. Now, by losing Warner Brothers underneath Comcast, now all of a sudden these behemoth corporations, I mean, they're going to look at, like, what do we need this product for? We're not making any money from these movies. There's only like 20 movies people want to watch anyway. Let's concentrate on those. The rest of this crap doesn't matter. And we're losing part of our culture. Now, I know that's naive for me to say. I'm a capitalist. But to see that our ability, the free flow of ideas and the free flow of thought is now being diminished by the fact that these purveyors of culture are being sucked up by larger and larger corporations that just see them as money-making entities, I think it's unfortunate. And I think ultimately it's leading to the diminishment, the sort of erosion of our culture in a way. And I mean culture as a force. That's why human beings have art. That's why we don't just want to make money. That's why we're not just all farmers. Some people get into things because we still, as human beings, dream of the future or dream of better lives or dream of something else other than what we are. And movies are the very basis of that. That was why they became so powerful in the 20th century. And we need the ability to dream in our culture. That's what the engine that drives us forward really is. There wouldn't be any great business if someone never dreamed of a better life for themselves or their whole family.
Sure. Now, I'm hearing people say things like, it already is all big corporations doing it, and that while maybe they could stifle it, the big corporations are the ones facilitating these stories being told in the first place. All that is true. Yeah, I think the point that we're making, though, is that I was talking to a filmmaker, a director, a friend of ours. You guys know who this person is. I was talking to a filmmaker earlier about this, and what they pointed out was this: is that what happens is that as certain big corporations merge, or one takes over another, or two just decide to merge, whatever, the options for storytellers become more and more limited. It used to be, my friend would say, that if we had an idea for a film, we can go to a studio, they turn it down, don't worry. We've got 5, 6, 7, 8 other places we can stop along Sunset Boulevard, pitch that to. Star Wars, infamously, was turned down by everybody until 20th Century Fox finally said, you know what? Yeah, okay, we'll give this one a go. And they also point out that it's okay. Like, there's so many egos in Hollywood that, hey, if you ruffle the feathers wrong at one studio, it's okay. You still got 7 or 8 other studios that you can work with. What we're having happen here now is that, yes, it's still all just corporations. Yeah, we get that. But the thing is now there's fewer and fewer and fewer and fewer options. And the fewer and fewer options that you get, the more limited diversity in storytelling. And by diversity, I don't mean representation diversity. I mean types of stories.
The kinds of stories.
You're getting limited diversity in these types of stories. You're getting limited options of places you can go to. And now you're in a place where if the first 4 people say no to your story, you've got nowhere else to go. And that's why this concerns me. It concerned me a little bit, unfortunately, when Fox was being absorbed. It's concerning me now that Warner Brothers may get absorbed. Like, I don't mind somebody else buying Warner Brothers. Although I don't like the idea of it being flipped. But
Yeah.
what I'm really concerned about is that it would be Comcast taking them over, because that's just the disappearance of another major player.
And what is Comcast but a company that wants to use its infrastructure to distribute the product that these studios make? What's really interesting to me about it is, unfortunately, the people that corporations, I mean, obviously they control the world. Hey, if you watch 1975's Rollerball, there are no more governments at all. There's just
Everything
corporations.
you need to know about life came from 1975's Rollerball.
I'm telling, and network, you know, and but I do believe, oh, that was later, but I do believe, John, that, you know, the problem is that movie making and storytelling as a product to be sold, that's what studios do. They're in the business of making movies. Now, they might be owned by someone else, but they have their autonomy.
Yeah,
And with this, they're not going to.
I again, I'm just left with this.
I wonder too if it's going to lead to future theater droughts at the theater, because there's fewer movies being put out. Then if you're consolidating, you can only oversee so much.
Maybe yes, maybe no, depending. I mean, I was talking to another friend of ours today who said it really wouldn't impact that. I mean, whether it did or not, because now with a larger scale, you can do that. And by the way, I don't blame Comcast. I mean, Comcast, the one executive in the quote is right. Peacock, while I'm starting to enjoy it more and more, it struggles. And I think the name didn't do them any favors, but they're struggling. Comcast sees, listen, if we really want to get in this game and we have an opportunity to buy up Warner Brothers and HBO, hey, I don't blame them. I mean, I get that. Yeah, that would really help you out a lot. I get it. But I think for the overall industry, it's going to hurt. Anyway, guys, the question is for you. What do you think about this? Maybe you're looking at this and thinking, you know what, this is all like corporate level stuff. We don't care. I get that. But I think ultimately it's going to affect the movies you actually get to watch and enjoy. But I know, how do you feel about it? Whatever those thoughts are, jump down into the comment section below and leave those thoughts there.